do you say, old man? I'll say it again. Leave. Why you? The leader got red in the face and balled up his fists, then crumpled to the ground. Many of the surrounding people were shocked, including the other 4 men. What Sebas had done was simple. He made a fist and struck the man's jaw with pinpoint precision at a speed on the very edge of human perception, rattling his brain with a high-velocity hit. He could throw punches faster than humans could perceive, but if he did that, he wouldn't be able to scare anyone, so he held back. Do you still want to fight? Sebas asked quietly. His composure and strength had overcome the intoxication clouding their minds, and they all apologized as they backed away several steps. Sebas felt they were apologizing to the wrong person, but he didn't say anything. He looked away from the fleeing men carrying their unconscious friend and went to take a step toward the boy, but his foot stopped midway. What am I doing? What he needed to do was think of a way to solve his problem. Only an idiot would make more trouble for himself at a time like this. Wasn't the whole reason he was in his current predicament because he acted so compassionately without thinking? I saved him for now. I should be satisfied with that. With those thoughts in his mind, Sebas approached the figure on the ground. He touched the limp, immobile boy's back and poured Kai into him. A full-powered infusion would have easily healed him completely, but that would definitely have drawn too much attention. He stopped at the minimum and pointed at someone when their eyes happened to meet. Take this child to the shrine. His breastbone may be broken, so take care when you carry him. Put him on a board and try not to bump him around too much. When the man nodded at the orders, Sebas set off walking. There was no need to elbow his way through the crowd. The wall of people neatly parted for him. Right after he left, he sensed that the number of people tailing him had gone up. There was just one problem: their identity. The 5 who had been following him from the mansion had to be Sucurant's henchmen. So who were the 2 who joined after the incident with the boy? The sound of the footsteps and stride length indicated adult males, but Sebas had no idea who they might be. Well, thinking about it, get me an answer. I guess I'll catch them. Sebas continued walking, turning down dirtier and dirtier streets. He was still being followed. Are they even trying to hide themselves? There was no indication they were attempting to conceal their footsteps. Was it because they don't have that ability, or is there some other reason? Sebas cocked his head and decided he should simply find out. Once the presence of other people had dwindled, right when Sebas was about to make his move, the hoarse, but still young-sounding male voice of one of his pursuers called out to him. Excuse me, 33 late fire moon September 10:27 a.m. Climb was thinking as he walked back to the castle. He replayed that morning's session with Gazef in his mind several times, ruminating on what he could have done to put up a better fight. Around the time he decided on some tactics for next time, he discovered a crowd of people making angry shouts. 2 soldiers were watching awkwardly from nearby. From the middle of the crowd, he could hear a ruckus. These were not normal voices. Climb took on a firm expression and strode toward the soldiers. What are you doing? The sudden call startled the soldiers. They turned to look at Climb. They were equipped with mail and spears. Over the mail shirts, they wore something like a surcoat with the kingdom's coat of arms. It was the typical appearance of a kingdom guard, but these 2 didn't seem highly trained. First of all, their physiques were not particularly built. Plus, their beards were neatly shaved, and their mail shirts were polished, which made them look rather unclean. Overall, they seemed sloppy. And you are? One of the guards asked. His voice implied confusion and anger at being called out by someone younger than him. I am off duty, Climb declared. The man's consternation showed on his face. Probably a younger boy seemed to suggest his rank was higher. For the time being, the soldier appeared to judge that a humble approach would be smart and straightened up. There seems to be some sort of disturbance. Climb repressed the urge to reprimand them. He thought, I got that much. Unlike the soldiers guarding the castle, the ones patrolling the city were commoners. They hadn't been through as much training. They were essentially peasants who learned to use a weapon. Climb moved his eyes from the nervous soldiers to the cluster of people. Rather than expecting these 2 to do something, it would be faster to act himself. Maybe he was exceeding the authority of his position by sticking his nose in their business, but he wouldn't have been able to explain it to his compassionate master if he stood by while people suffered. You guys wait here. Having made up his mind, Climb forced his way into the mass of people without listening for a reply. Even if there was a small gap he couldn't slip through, it would be strange if a human could. As he desperately elbowed his way through, nearly getting shoved aside, he heard a voice from the center of the crowd. "Leave, huh? What do you say, old man? I'll say it again. Leave, why you, this is bad." They were going to lash out again, this time at an old man. When Climb popped out of the crowd, flushed after frantically pushing his way through, the first thing he saw was an elderly man and the men surrounding him. A child looked like a tattered rag at their feet. The elegance of the well-dressed older man indicated he was either a noble or served one. The robust men around him seemed drunk. A glance was all it would take to tell who was in the wrong. The man who seemed to be the strongest curled his hands into tight fists. The difference between that man and the old one was overwhelming. He had a stocky body, bulky muscles, and a violent temperament that wouldn't hesitate to shed blood. If he hit the older man, he could easily send him flying. The people around them realized this and released faint screams. They thought a tragedy was about to befall the old man. Climb was the only one among them who sensed something was off. Certainly, the other man looked more robust, but Climb had the feeling that the absolute power he sensed belonged to the older one. That momentary distraction meant he lost his chance to stop the violence. The man balled up his fists and collapsed. Surprised voices sounded all around Climb. The old man had made a fist and whacked the drunk's jaw with terrifying accuracy. The punch was delivered at quite a high speed. It was a punch that even Climb, who had trained his eyes to follow fast movements, could only just make out. "Do you still want to fight?" The old man's deep, quiet voice asked the question. His composure and sudden display of strength were incredibly sobering for the drunk men. No, even the spectators were overcome by the elderly man's drive. The men had completely lost the will to fight. "We were sorry," they apologized as they backed away several steps. Then they picked up their friend from his awkward position on the ground and fled. Climb didn't feel like pursuing them. He was mesmerized by the old man's straight posture and couldn't move. His spine was straight as a sword. Any soldier aspired to look like that. After touching the boy's back, perhaps to examine him, the old man asked a bystander to take care of him and walked off. The crowd parted in a straight line, creating a path. No one took their eyes off his back. That was the effect of such poise. Climb rushed over to the boy on the ground and took out the potion Gazef had given to him during their training session. "Can you drink this?" There was no response. The boy had lost consciousness completely. Climb opened the bottle and sprinkled the potion over his body. Many people thought potions were only for drinking, but they worked equally well when poured on the target. Such was the extraordinary nature of magic. The liquid was absorbed into the boy's skin as if his skin was drinking it in. Color returned to his face. Relieved, Climb nodded once. The bystanders were just as surprised at the use of such an expensive item as they were at the old man's moves. Climb had given up a potion, but he didn't regret it. As long as taxes were being collected from the people, it was his duty to protect them and keep the peace, since he was subsisting on that money. If he couldn't do that, he should at least do this. Since he used a potion on him, the boy should be fine, but they should probably still take him to the shrine, just in case. When he glanced at the guards standing by, there were 3 more. They must have shown up late. The guards who had finally arrived on the scene turned a critical eye on all the people in the area. Climb spoke to one of the uncomfortable-looking patrolmen. "Take this child to the shrine." "What in the world?" "He was beaten up. I used a healing potion on him, so I think he's okay, but I want you to take him to the shrine just to be sure." "Right, understood." Climb decided he would leave the rest up to the guards. His work there was done. A soldier from the castle probably shouldn't stick his nose into other jurisdictions too much. "Can I ask you to get the details about what happened from someone who saw the whole thing?" "Understood." "Then I'll leave the rest up to you." The guards were more confident with orders. After Climb confirmed that they were taking efficient action, he stood up and took off running. He heard one of them call, "Where are you going?" but he ignored it. When he got to the street where the old man had turned, he slowed down. He caught sight of his target right away. Really, he wanted to call out to him immediately, but he wasn't feeling quite brave enough. He felt an overwhelming amount of pressure, like a thick, invisible wall. The old man continued walking, turning down dirtier and dirtier streets. Climb followed after him. All the time he was following, he couldn't bring himself to talk to him. I am tailing him, Climb thought. He despaired at his own conduct. He shouldn't do that, no matter how hard it was to talk to someone. I need to change this situation, he fretted as he kept walking. Eventually, when they reached a back alley devoid of human presence, Climb took a few deep breaths and shouted with all the courage he could muster, like a man confessing his feelings to a girl he liked. "Excuse me." The old man whirled around in response to the voice. His hair was completely white, as was his beard, but his back was straight as the blade of a steel sword. Conspicuous wrinkles in his chiseled features gave him an air of kindness, but his penetrating eyes were like those of a hawk targeting its prey. He even had the elegance of a great noble. "Did you need something?" The old man's voice was a bit hoarse, but full of a lively, dignified energy. Climb felt an invisible force pressing in on him, and he swallowed. "You are overwhelmed by the power of the old man." He couldn't get proper words out. Noticing this, the old man relaxed. "Who are you?" His tone was gentle. Finally, released from that heavy pressure, Climb's throat could work normally. "My name is Climb and I am a soldier here. Thank you for doing what should have been my job." Climb bowed, humble and low. The old man squinted slightly, thinking, and then seemed to realize what Climb meant with a little "oh, it was no trouble. I'll be going now." Climb raised his head. As the old man clipped the conversation short and started walking off, he said, "Please wait. Actually, I am ashamed to admit it, but I've been following you because, and I hope you'll laugh at my impertinence if you don't mind, I'd like you to mentor me about that skill you used." "What do you mean by that?" "I am working very hard to get stronger. So when I saw your incredible movements earlier, I thought it would be great if you could teach me the skill." The old man looked Climb up and down. "Let me see your hands." Climb stuck out his hands. The old man gazed intently at his palms. He couldn't help but feel uneasy. The old man flipped his hands over. He glanced at his nails. Then he nodded in satisfaction. They were thick and sturdy, good warrior hands. The smile and the compliment made Climb feel warm inside. The rush of happiness was on par with the one he felt when Gazef had praised him. "No, I am barely a soldier." "No need for modesty. Next, may I see your sword?" The old man gazed first at the grip, then at the blade of the sword he was handed. "I see. Is this a spare weapon? How did you know?" "So it is then. There's a dent here." When he closely examined the place the old man was pointing at, sure enough, the blade had a slight ding in it. It must have struck something in an awkward way during training. How embarrassing. Climb was so mortified he wished he could disappear. Because Climb was aware of how unskilled he was, he paid obsessive attention to his weapons to gain even a little bit of an edge. At least up until that moment he thought so. "I see. I have a rough understanding of your personality now. Hands and weapon are mirrors of a warrior-esque character. You've made a very favorable impression on me." Climb, beat red to his ears, looked admiringly at the old man. What he saw was a gracious, good-natured smile. "Okay, I'll train you, but just a bit." However, he stopped Climb before he could thank him. "There is something I want to ask. You said you were a soldier, right?" "Well, the other day I saved this woman." After hearing the old man Seba's story, Climb was furious. He couldn't hide his disgust at the fact that someone would abuse the emancipation of the slaves Renna had proclaimed, and that nothing had even changed yet. No, that wasn't right. Climb shook his head. The law prohibited the buying and selling of slaves. However, it wasn't uncommon to have people working off debts in poor conditions. That loophole had become a free-for-all. Actually, it was probably precisely because there was a loophole that the law managed to get enacted at all. Renna's law is nearly meaningless. The thought flitted across Climb's mind, but he shook it off. Right now, he needed to consider Seba's circumstances. He furrowed his brow. Seba's was at a total disadvantage. It would be possible to investigate the terms of the young woman's contract and counterattack, but he couldn't imagine the opposing side wasn't prepared for such a tactic. If they appealed to the law, Seba's would surely lose. The fact that the other men hadn't already done so meant they felt they could rip him off even better some other way. "Do you happen to know anyone who isn't corrupt who could help me?" Climb knew only one person. He could say with confidence that no noble had more integrity than Renna. He knew she could be trusted, but he couldn't introduce her. If these people were capable of skirting the slave trafficking prohibition, they were sure to have connections within various power structures. Naturally, the nobles they were affiliated with probably had a fair bit of authority. If the princess, a member of the King's faction, invoked state authority to investigate, rescue people, and cause losses for the nobles' faction, it could lead to an all-out war. Exercising authority wasn't such a simple matter. One wrong move could trigger a civil war, especially in their divided kingdom. He couldn't let Rena be responsible for the downfall of the state. Lachius felt the same way, which was why their earlier conversation had gone as it had. That was why Clym hadn't said anything, couldn't say anything. However, Sebas had interpreted his anguished silence. He murmured, "I see," and then offered additional news that shocked Clym. "From what she told me, there are still others held captive in the building, men and women alike." "What the heck? So does that mean there is another brothel besides the one run by the slave trafficking organization, or is it the same one? If it is a matter of allowing them to flee somewhere, I would have to ask my master, but she has some land, so maybe they could go there. Would that be possible? Would you be able to shelter the woman I saved as well? My apologies, Sir Sebas, but I can promise anything without asking my master. That said, she is a very compassionate person. I think it'll be all right. If you have that much faith in your master, she must be a wonderful person." Clym nodded emphatically. He had a more admirable master than anyone. "I am changing the subject here, but if we could prove slave trafficking activities were taking place at the brothel, what would happen to it? Would even that get covered up? There is a possibility they would be forced to close up shop if we turned in the evidence to the proper authorities. At least, I want to believe the kingdom isn't that corrupt." "Understood. Now then, allow me to ask you a different question. Why do you want to get stronger, huh?" Clym let out a foolish-sounding yelp, caught off guard by the sudden topic change. "You just said you want me to train you. I've judged that I can trust you, but I want to know the reason you are pursuing power." Clym squinted as he pondered. "Why do I want to get stronger?" Clym had been abandoned as a child and didn't know either of his parents' faces. In the kingdom, this wasn't such a rare thing, and it wasn't uncommon to die face down in the mud either. It had been Clym's fate to die in such a way in the rain that day, but instead, he had met the sun. After crawling around in the dirt and the dimness his entire existence, he was enthralled by its brilliance. When he was young, he had admired her. As he grew, the feeling assumed a stronger form. Love. He had to destroy that emotion. A miracle like in the sagas the bards sang would never happen in the real world. Just as no human could reach the sun, Clym's feelings would never reach her. He couldn't allow them to. The woman Clym loved was fated to be another man's wife. There was no way a princess would end up bound to someone like Clym. His status was lower than a peasant as his origins were unknown. If the king suddenly collapsed and the eldest prince assumed the throne, Rena would surely be married off immediately. She would marry one of the great nobles. It had probably already been decided between the prince and the noble, or it was possible there would be a strategic marriage to someone in a neighboring country. It was strange that she was of age, but had no husband or even a fiancé. It was a golden moment. He would have given anything to stop time. If he didn't have to train so much, he would have been able to relish it a little more. Clym was an ordinary person with no innate ability. Still, thanks to his hard work, he managed to get fairly strong as a soldier. So deciding he was satisfied with that, quitting his workouts and spending a little more time next to Rena would be a better use of his time, wouldn't it? But could he really do that? Clym admired her brilliance. That was no lie, and it wasn't a mistake. It was just a feeling from his heart. But I am a man, so Clym laughed. Yes, he wanted to stand next to her. The sun shone in the sky. A human could never stand next to it. Still, he wanted to climb as high as he could. He wanted to be someone who could stand even a little closer to her. He didn't want to forever look up at her in admiration. These were silly feelings for a boy, but they were good feelings for a boy to have. He wanted to be a man suitable for the woman he admired, even if they would never be together. It was because he had those feelings that he could endure his friendless life, his difficult warrior path, and the studies that chipped away at his sleeping time. If anyone wants to laugh at his foolish ideas, let them. Only a person who had truly loved someone could understand. Sebas squinted as he intently observed the boy, wanting to comprehend the countless meanings contained in the short reply.